Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. One of the biggest lessons that I believe we learned after week one of the college football season is that Hugh Freeze and Auburn, this is going to be a legitimate threat in the SEC all 2025 long. And I mean, you go back and dive into what you saw from Auburn against Baylor. My biggest takeaway is that I don't even think Auburn played close to their best football against Baylor, specifically on the defensive side of the football. They still figured out a way to win by 2 scores against the Baylor team that I think is going to have a chance to compete for a Big 12 championship. I mean, this was an Auburn offense, especially with the ground attack. That offensive line, ain't enough people talking about it. That offensive line was moving bodies all night. Jackson Arnold obviously getting involved with his legs, thought the running backs, kind of by a committee approach, replaced the production of Jarquez Hunter. This is going to be a very difficult ground attack for opposing defenses to deal with. Look, we didn't see Auburn push the ball down the field all that much. We saw when Jackson Arnold was asked to. I thought he did a good job of it. I mean, you talk about Malcolm Simmons on that go route, that football hit him right in the hands. You talk about pushing it up the seam to Malcolm Simmons. You talk about that deep over to Cam Coleman. When Jackson Arnold was asked to push the ball down the field, I thought he showed he can make the throws he needs to make. Now he's going to have to show he can make those throws more consistently, because I promise that there will be defenses that don't leave their 2 safeties high. They're going to walk their safeties in the box, try to take away the ground attack, and Jackson Arnold's going to need to show that he can win vertically down the field on a consistent basis. But with the small sample size that we have, I thought Jackson Arnold showed that he can push that sucker down the field. Want to get into some of the biggest takeaways that I had from this Auburn offense. I really want to dive into what we saw from this Auburn defense and what needs to get cleaned up. I'll say this, though. I'm not selling my stock on this Auburn defense just yet. I thought DJ Durkin came in with let's just be straight about it. I ain't an X's and O's genius, but I don't think it was a great game plan to deal with this Baylor offense. I didn't think you saw a ton of adjustments from DJ Durkin, which was mildly frustrating, but I thought you saw a defensive line that has the ability to take over football games. So I want to get into the Auburn defense as well, talk about what we need to see get better, because you make no mistake about it. If Auburn's offense plays the way we saw against Baylor and they maximize what I think they can be on defense, this is going to be a hard team to beat every single Saturday. Before we get into it, as always, to the Auburn fans, appreciate you guys. It truly has been a blast tracking this program over the last 2 years. This is one of the more fun teams for me to talk about, because we have slowly broken down all these commitments, whether they're the high school kids, whether they're the portal guys. We have slowly tracked how Hugh Freeze has built this roster over the last 2 years. Now we get the opportunity to see it all come together in 2025. And to the Auburn fans who've been rocking with the boys for the last couple of years, appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Much more importantly, I would love to hear how the Auburn fans are feeling about this football team post week 1 against Baylor. Without further ado, let's get into it. Now, I want to start with this run game, because I thought this was an offensive line that showed, man, they're built to move some bodies off the line of scrimmage. And I thought Connor Lew was one of the best offensive linemen that we saw all weekend long. I mean, working up to the second level, moving bodies off the line, turning guys out. We knew Connor Lew was good. He played like one of the best centers in the country Friday night against Baylor. And I thought they showed a little depth on the offensive line too. When I believe it was Jeremiah Wright who had to come out of the game for a little bit, you saw Tutal Miller get in there and start moving some bodies too. That's a really important talking point when you're talking about a team that wants to compete for an SEC championship. You need to be deep along the line of scrimmage. We say this all the time. There are a lot of SEC teams that have good football players. What separates the good teams from the great teams is the depth, specifically along the line of scrimmage. The ability for Auburn to go down a starter, roll in Tutal Miller, and not really skip a beat. I could make the argument that the offensive line might have gotten better with Tutal Miller in there. That shows you we're deep enough. And Tutal Miller, he can play pretty much any position outside of center on the football field, or I should say on the offensive line. You feel really good about how that offensive line played, and you feel really good about the depth of that unit too. I'll say this. I thought Damari Alston and Jeremiah Cobb thought they ran really hard. I mean, they it was getting blocked up for them, but I thought they were attacking the line of scrimmage, not looking to do too much, taking what was there. This was a methodical rushing attack for Auburn. They stayed on schedule. They moved the chains, dominated time of possession. That's what you're looking for from this Auburn offense. Now, there's this narrative going around, especially in the national media, that we don't trust Jackson Arnold to throw the football. I don't think that's true. Number one, you probably didn't watch the game. Number two, you might just be a hater. Because you go back and watch this Baylor game, they were sitting with two high safeties all game long. They were saying, hey, we don't think we can deal with these pass catchers on the outside. And so we're going to beg you to run the football. That's exactly what Auburn did. And I'll give Hugh Freeze and this offensive staff some credit. Because I think in previous years, you probably see this Auburn coaching staff try to force the issue. Say, hey, we paid all this money for these top wide receivers in the country. We want to get them involved. Look, if the run game was working, of which it clearly was, and Baylor wasn't trying to do squat about it, just stick to what was working. And I thought Auburn's coaching staff did a really good job of that. Now, when it was time for Jackson Arnold to push the ball down the field, I thought he showed that he has the ability to make some of those throws. And the biggest thing that I got from that Auburn offense's performance, Jackson Arnold might have his swagger back. And we talked about that being one of the biggest storylines is like, look, the physical ability for Jackson Arnold has never been the question. There was a reason he had 5 stars out next to his name when he was coming out of high school. Whether he's running the football or throwing the football, I thought you saw a quarterback in Jackson Arnold who believed in himself. And when it was time to throw the football down the field, especially on that deep ball to Malcolm Simmons, that go route up the boundary, it's a beautiful ball. Wasn't totally there. Wasn't a ton of separation that Malcolm Simmons created, but that ball was a high quality football that Jackson Arnold threw. There will be teams that are going to do the opposite of what Baylor did and say, hey, we ain't going to let you run the football all over us. And especially with what Jackson Arnold showed he could do in the run game, you're going to have to walk into safety to account for what Jackson Arnold can do. Then the opportunities are going to present themselves in terms of throwing the football down the field. I thought there were a few times Jackson Arnold was a little bit gun shy throwing the football that you'll probably want to see get continued to work on. I left really optimistic about what this Auburn offense can be. Thought you saw a lot of good things from Jackson Arnold. Thought you saw a lot of good things from the running backs replacing Jarquez Hunter. That was the best offensive line performance we've seen from Auburn, both in the run game and pass protection in a very long time. We know they have the guys on the outside. But boxes are checked for this Auburn offense. The Auburn defense. The real reason that I was so high on Auburn going into 2025 was I truly, and I still think this defense can be one of the better units in the SEC. It does have to get better, though. Number one takeaway, this defensive line, I think, can take over games. I don't think people are talking enough about how dominant I thought this Auburn defensive line was. You look at Keldrick Falk. You look at Amaris Williams. You look at Malik Blockton on the inside. You look at Darian Smith, true freshman on the inside. You look at Kieron Crawford. I thought all of them were showing up in the pass rush department. Thought Sawyer Robertson did a really good job getting the football out of his hands, getting outside the pocket at times and extending plays. If this Auburn secondary can take a step and become a little bit more sticky in coverage, this pass rush going to get home. And if I'm an Auburn fan, I'm looking at all these other offensive lines. I'm looking at Texas playing Ohio State. I'm looking at Alabama playing Florida State and saying, hey, we think we can get after some of these offensive lines in this conference. And I truly think they have the pass rush to do it. I thought they were really good against the run as well, which was probably my bigger question is, hey, what are these linebackers? What does this interior defensive line look like against the run? Thought they were fine. But I'm talking about like Keldrick Falk, talking about Amaris Williams, Malik Blockton, Darian Smith, Kieron Crawford. You get all those guys on the football field getting after the passer. I truly think that's going to be a problem for a lot of these SEC offensive lines. Now, there are still things that need to get figured out, specifically in the back end. Number one, and I think we can tip our cap here, Sawyer Robertson in these Baylor pass catchers on the outside, whether that was Cole Wilson, that was Michael Trigg, they made plays. And that is a legit passing attack that we saw from Baylor. In fact, I'll go out and say this. Go look across the SEC landscape. How many better passing attacks are you going to see in this conference? Thought that was legit. Like Michael Trigg going to go in the NFL draft. Cole Wilson is a legitimate difference maker that Baylor has. Sawyer Robertson, I believe, would be a top half quarterback in the SEC this year. Like there was a reason teams were going after him in the offseason during the transfer portal period. So I think number one, you can tip your cap and say, I don't know how many better passing attacks we are going to see on our schedule. And then number two, like there are a lot of things to clean up. Number one, can't miss as many tackles as Auburn did. I believe it was 17 tackles. They gave up 250 yards after the catch in this football game. That needs to get cleaned up. The frustrating part when I was going back and watching this game over is it just DJ Durkin didn't seem to want to make any adjustments. He continued to bring pressure and say, hey, we think we can deal with some of these guys on the outside. Why are we sending pressure so much when our front four is showing us they can get after the quarterback without any pressure, right? And then you look at the numbers and say, all right, Sawyer Robertson, when he was blitzed, which was almost 40% of the time, 65% completion percentage, 235 yards, 13.8 yards per attempt. Take a look at the numbers when he was not blitzed. Completion percentage drops to 51%, only 5.6 yards per pass attempt. It was pretty clear that when Auburn was giving Sawyer Robertson pressure, these Baylor wide receivers were creating separation and the ball was coming out quick from Sawyer Robertson. But we continued to send pressure when I didn't think Auburn needed to. Now, if the story was, hey, Auburn can't get any pass rush with the front four, then I understand trying to dial up some pressure. I thought Auburn continued to show you that they could manufacture pressure with the front four. Not sure why we needed to blitz the way we did. Zone coverage was sloppy at times, especially with some of these young linebackers. I thought the linebackers were great supporting the run. Robert Woodyard, Xavier Atkins, so thought they were flying around the football field, finding the ball carrier. When Baylor was dropping back and Auburn's linebackers had to zone drop, it was sloppy. It seemed like it was a little bit too easy. The throwing lanes were a little bit too big, especially when you're giving a quarterback like Sawyer Robertson those kind of throwing windows. You're going to make it pay. That was a little bit sloppy, and man coverage got beat a couple of times. You asked Caleb Harris, I believe, to go one-on-one in the slot with Cole Wilson. That's just a matchup that you want to probably try to avoid. What I'll say with this Auburn defense is, and we can kind of flip to it and talk about what we saw. What I'll say about this Auburn defense is that I still think it can be a very good defense. I think you got a defensive line that can get after the passer. I thought this Auburn front seven showed they can stop the run. This is a secondary that should be good. You're talking about Jay Crawford. You're talking about Kay and Lee. I know Champ Anthony is going to be out with a little bit of an injury, but Caleb Harris was awesome. I thought Eric Winters, freshman safety, was pretty dang solid in this football game. We just need the sum of the parts to equal how good this defense can be. Because I look at it individually on paper and say, hey, I got confidence in DJ Durkin. I got confidence in the personnel. I think you got NFL dudes at all three levels. We just got to play better football and probably just have a little bit better of a game plan. Now, I don't think the game plan dealing with Michael Trigg was all that good. And he continued to win, and we continued to not make any adjustments. There's kind of that balance to toe is number one. It's a week one opener. Like you're not probably going to tackle your best week one in a college football game. You played a Baylor offense that, again, I don't know how many better passing attacks that Auburn's going to see in the SEC than Sawyer Robertson, those difference makers we saw on the outside. So I think Auburn needs to be better. There's no doubt about that. I don't expect this Auburn defense to give up routinely the amount of yards they did to Baylor. But I also think you can tip your cap and say, hey, I don't know how many better offenses we're going to see in the SEC this year. We'll see if this Auburn defense can take a step, because if they do, and we get that kind of performance from this Auburn offense, it's going to be a really hard team to beat. Really hard team to beat. I think Auburn, after week one, if I'm grading out line of scrimmage play, I don't think many teams in the SEC have better line of scrimmage play than Auburn, both on the offensive line and the defensive line. That matters. That is what separates teams in the SEC. To the Auburn fans who've been rocking with the boys for the last couple of years, and I apologize that I'm rambling here, we've talked a lot about this. Hugh Freeze gets a lot of attention for his recruiting in terms of Cam Coleman, Perry Thompson, Eric Singleton. What they've done on the defensive line, talking about Keldrick, talking about Amaris, talking about Darian Smith, Malik Autry, Jordan Craw. I mean, they have stacked a lot of quality bodies along the line of scrimmage. You'll look for that to pay off in 2025. We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all Later.